Welcome to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. And today I have my friend, Mr. Rafael. Actually, in Spanish is Rafael Cortez.
Yeah, I love it when people roll the R's.
Yeah, like Rafael Cortez. No, Rafael Cortez you're from Yuma, Arizona, right?
Yeah, originally born and raised in Yuma, Arizona, border town, like the south point of Arizona, and so going back and forth between Arizona and Mexico was a normal thing. For me growing up and everything. So
So,
yeah,
you know, and this is completely off the subject. We just had a presidential election.
yeah.
And apparently the people from the border voted for Trump. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of what kind of came through. I mean, there was the wall and everything, but no, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, like people look at the big picture. So yeah, I mean,
Which
there's
is
gonna be split
the
emotions.
economy,
Yeah.
right? Look, I don't care what political views you guys are or even religion, at the end of the day, we all want the best for our nation, right?
100%. One of the simplest ways or simplest things that kind of got through, and through that sentiment was think about groceries. Think about like just the regular expenses on daily stuff, right? Like, I mean, I know that's back home and Yuma, San Luis, and like that was one of the big topics of conversation. Like, who are you gonna vote for? Like, people were getting nosy and whatnot, and like, well, I don't know, shit was a lot more expensive. Now it's a lot more expensive now than it was even a few years ago. So yeah, I mean,
But in
tangent,
the
but
last in
but
the
it's
last
true.
elections with when it was Biden and Trump, Arizona was actually they voted Democrat for the electoral votes, right?
Yeah.
This time around it was Republican, and for what I understand, there was a lot to do with the Hispanic vote, where people actually change and flip flop from voting Democrat towards Republican. By the way, I said it. This was completely off the subject. It has nothing to do with real estate, but it's interesting because Rafael is from a border town, so it's kind of interesting to see how people can go and say, you know what, this didn't work for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a change of heart, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now, you used to be a firefighter, Rafael, right?
Yes.
And for
Yes.
for those
Previous
of
life.
you that don't know Rafael, you need to go back in the Real Estate Entrepreneurs podcast maybe a couple of years ago, and he was on the podcast. That's where he told us the whole story on who he was, where he was coming from, and all that. But today, we're gonna talk about how to run your business like a CEO, right? Which is a subject that you really like to touch a lot. Actually, you coach
Yeah.
people on this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I spend a lot of my time, doing that same, or in that same context. I mean, coaching people on how to build businesses and switch that method of thinking, right, from the hustler mentality to the owner mentality or the CEO mentality. So yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Like the difference in between hustler mentality and CEO mentality, right?
Yeah, I feel like the term CEO is kind of kicked around, just as much as the entrepreneur role, and and at the end of the day, like it's two different uh sets of thinking. When you're building a business, when you're growing something from the ground up, bootstrapping it or whatever, like there's a lot of passion behind it. There's a lot of thinking from a survival points or perspective, right? Because you have to make ends meet, especially if you don't have funding and you're trying to figure shit out as you go through the process. So we get into this space of thinking and or operating from a needs based mentality, right? A survival point or survival perspective of things, and we hustle through things. Like nothing's going to stop us because we have this mission, this goal. We got to hit this point of revenue and make things work as we're going through it. I feel like that's, at least in my experience, most of the conversations, even the conversations that I have on the podcasts, in my podcast, is they're aligned with that same train of thought, right? The hustle mentality at the beginning. The crazy thing is that the hustle mentality becomes a tool, a very valuable tool that we need at a certain point in time. But as we progress, as we start growing, we start, hiring people and making, bigger moves in the business itself, right? We can start as a small business, but it grows if you stay the course. The stuff that got us to that point is not going to keep working going forward. So we have to shift along with the business. And I feel like that's where we lose a lot of people. We have mom and pop, shops that stay mom and pop shops forever. And then you see owners, right? Burning out 30 years later. Why? Because they're fed up, they're tired, they're sick and tired of just running the same thing or dealing with the same problems and whatnot. But the mentality of growth was kind of truncated at some point. And that's where we go from a space. I mean, we talk systems and processes, automations and all kinds of stuff, especially now with AI and everything that's happening in tech, right? We can try to shift everything or everything in our power, right, when it comes to the business. But if we don't shift the way that we think about it, nothing is going to click on that side. So it's a two part type of a process of growth. One is the business itself, where we start to implement things, right, and see the business, as a tool, like the way that I go about it. For example, especially when I build the ops is if I'm and I love using this analogy, right? This is literally what goes through my head. Like if I'm sitting at a beach somewhere, I want to keep closing deals. I want the money to be coming in. I want to have notifications on my email that say that I just got paid. How do I make that happen? Like that, to me, it's the ultimate thing, right? Because it's freedom, it's time with family, it's self-love, it's everything encompassed into this one thing that I don't have to be there. So reverse engineering. So that's one part. One thing I realized going through it, especially when I launched my first business, which had nothing to do with real estate, was that you can get to that point of revenue that initially becomes the goal. And if you're not aware of it, or if you don't catch on to yourself, you're going to keep operating under like survival mode. So doing the same stuff over and over again, even if you don't have to be in that survival mode space. So you stop your own growth as you're going through it. So it's a very big gap or transition between that hustler mentality and the behaviors and habits that we have, right, as we hustle through the first stages, to that entrepreneur space where it's like, all right, cool, now I can delegate. I don't have the need to have all that control myself and micromanage, and I can tap into talent and let the talent work and do their thing. I mean, we go a lot further whenever we're together and we tap into all the talent that we bring onto the businesses, man. It's crazy. But I know I was choking the living heck out of it when I was hiring people and not letting them do their job, right? So it's again, you may have all the nuts and bolts of a business, but if your mentality is not there, and the way that you approach it, I mean, it doesn't click.
I'm glad you said that, because there is a lot of people that they want to scale, they want to make more money, they want to hit those big numbers, right? They want to do a lot of deals, but they're not willing to invest in other people, or they're not willing to delegate, right? Or hire help, because they believe that if they do that, they're not going to have enough money for themselves.
Right.
How do you overcome that? That's not my case, by the way. I love delegating and hiring. I can do that so fast, it's unreal. I'm like, every time I have a problem in my hands, and like, let's say a challenge shows up on my hands, the first question I ask myself is, who can handle this? That's the first thing on my team. Like, who am I going to pass this on, right? But let's pretend I'm the new guy. I just started in the world of entrepreneurship, and let's focus more on entrepreneurship more than real estate, because at the end of the day, we're all entrepreneurs. We just picked the real estate route, right?
Yeah, it's a vehicle. Yeah,
it's just a vehicle. I used to have a job. Okay, I worked for, I don't know, 15 years in a corporation or whatnot. But then I found myself, and I'm using myself as an example. I found myself venturing in business on my own. Now I have the knowledge and I can close deals. I can make money. I can hustle. Right, put houses under contract, maybe flip them or wholesale them, or maybe I'm very good at being a landlord. But if I don't work, my income stream dies. Or if
Right.
I get sick, I don't produce money. How can one change their mindset from, okay, I got to do it all, into now I have to hire people to help me? And I find a lot of people having a tough time with that, Rafael.
You know what I see often, like as far as, and again, when I'm coaching students, it's exactly the stage that most are in, right? I have different levels, from get your first deal to up to 3 deals, and then grow it into 3+ deals a month and whatnot. So it's different. I get to see different parts of the journey. When people get to the point where I'm pushing for hiring, is because they're bottlenecked, right? So we have this um I mean, it's a law of diminishing results. There's gonna come a point where you're doing so much and your results are not gonna elevate. They're not gonna be more. Even if you're doing more work, your output's still gonna stay the same. You start getting burned out, you start getting tired and fed up of the business itself. Like, you get to a point where you need to delegate, otherwise the thing just crashes and burns. So with that being said, the biggest challenge that I see, or the biggest reason that causes fear of delegation, because it's really what it is. It's a release of control. Like, it's better if I do it myself. It's not necessarily that the need for control is that big all the time. Sometimes it is, but it's a combination of that and then having a lack of clarity over the stuff that needs to be delegated. So it's like, all right, cool, I'm going to bring somebody in to help me with lead generation. But lead generation also includes transaction coordination. They're also going to help me write contracts. Whenever I'm not here, they're going to have to call the sellers and try to pitch. So now we have this one person that's wearing all kinds of hats.
It's a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, exactly. And we do that as entrepreneurs, but we're wired differently. The reason you're an entrepreneur and you're betting on yourself and you're taking that risk is because you are wired differently, right? Most people don't care. The vast majority don't care to have the headaches that we choose to have as entrepreneurs. I mean, that's the reality of it. Many people can operate very well as an intrapreneur within your business when you have that that layer of, let's call it safety, right? Optical safety at the beginning, really, for somebody to come in and operate under some level of comfort, right? But they don't care to have the headaches and everything that we go through. I mean, that's, if it was that easy, everybody would do it. And the case is that you get to a point where we're doing everything. We know the business inside and out. Like you said, right now, you can lock contracts, you can sell contracts, you can, lead generation, all that stuff, right? So, I mean, right now, we just tapped into like 4 different lanes of responsibilities. And there's a whole tier, right, of tasks and roles and responsibilities and KPIs and all kinds of things that we have to follow in each one of those tiers. Now, the fear about delegation or hiring somebody usually comes because of a lack of clarity, and because we have a lack of clarity over what that person is going to be accountable for. And I was like, I know I need to hire somebody, but I don't know what they're going to be doing.
I have a friend. His name is I'm just gonna say Quentin. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mention his last name, but I had this conversation with him last week because he's like, "Hey, Ricardo, I need to add a VA," is what he tells me, right? And I was like, "What do you need the VA for?"
I don't know.
He said, "I don't know, but I know I need more people on my team."
Yeah.
And I said, "All right, so tell me a little bit about your team. Like, how are you functioning?" And he tells me, he's doing a lot of offers through mail. He's got a VA already who's actually working on typing these offers that they're sending through mailers, and then he's doing the negotiations at the end, right? And so I found so many holes and gaps in that process that I'm like, I don't think you need one. I think you need like two or three more, brother. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, look, let's have a conversation about what your business looks like and the clarity that you have on who's doing what and what needs to be done so you can get to the goals that you want to get. As soon as we had the conversation, and I'm so happy you touched on this, on clarity, he gained clarity right away. He said, oh my God, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to add one because I know I need him right away. But as soon as we get some properties under contract, then we'll add another one. And I said, yeah, that's the correct progression. So, because I don't want to overwhelm you people also either with a lot of people that you don't need right away, or because you're going to need them maybe in a month or two from now. You don't have to incur on the cost of having them until you need them. And that's how you start growing gradually. And this conversation took place on Thursday last week. On Monday, he got the new VA onboarded. Today, that they already have 3 contracts from that one guy that he inserted into his operation. And he said, oh my God, how much faster can I go? I said, hold on a second, man.
Pump your brakes. Pump your brakes.
Let's go ahead and make some money, and then you add somebody else, and now you start growing gradually. But I'm glad you touched up on that, because a lot of people, that's where they lack is clarity. They don't know what to delegate. They don't know how to delegate it. They don't know, what needs to be done. So on your case, Rafael, what is a tool that you use to help you gain clarity?
I do a lot of mind maps. It's not necessarily a tool; it's a process, right? So, I mean, you've probably seen me do it. I mean, you've been to my office, and I have boards all over
Yeah.
the place. Now, to me, it's doing mind dumps of whatever that whatever's on my head, right? If I'm dealing with a I don't know, a lead generation problem or whatnot, I'll start doing a mind map on it. Here's the thing. Here's what I have, and then I'll start linking things to it, and just kind of creating a relationship, of okay, how everything kind of connects to each other. So that to me helps. If you want to simplify that process, reverse engineering goes a long way, right? So you go through and for something like this, reverse engineering, same thing. So say that you want to make $10,000, right? You want to, for the month, you want to make $10,000 a month. We'll keep it simple. Okay, to generate $10,000 a month, what do I need? If my average revenue per deal is $5,000. All right, I need 2 deals, right? So you start to reverse engineer the key things that you have to work on. For that kind of stuff, I use Lucid Charts. I mean, it's a really good platform, and I mean, it's very like intuitive in terms of how you map out your systems and your processes. And I mean, you can get really, really detailed. I also use that a lot to coach, and not just my students, but my team. So whenever I'm writing out SOPs and everything, I reverse engineer. So I take the steps that I need from the end result, right? And then just kind of break them backwards in bullet point format, and then I map them out. It's just easier to see it for me in a drawing rather than just bullet point presentations. But when it comes to the nuts and bolts on how to build, or how to put together a system or process, we don't have to get too complicated. At the beginning, it's especially when here's the crazy thing. So I when I was starting to get into the habit of documenting all my systems and processes and my KPIs and building spreadsheets and got super crafty on all that stuff. I didn't even need to do it back then. There wasn't a need for it. Like I wasn't there yet to that point where I had to have everything dialed in. So I was that guy that focused on the website, focused on the logo, focused on all the tools that I was gonna need before I started generating revenue. Big mistake. All right, go for the kill. Go for the revenue first. It's gonna be a lot easier on your mental health. Trust me. So I did that, right. But one thing that I understood is a lot of times, entrepreneurs tend to be complicated people. We just we tend to think, if there's a question or a problem to solve, instead of just following one route, we usually have 3 or 4 or 5 different ways of solving that same problem, and that can get confusing, right? If you're delegating something to an employee, we have to be pragmatic. We have to be very very black and white a lot of times. on the way that we create and build SOPs, that we create like those answers for whatever those problems are. I'll give you an example. If you have a transaction coordination or coordinator role, right? This is, one of the SOPs or one of the processes is opening escrow. This is how you open escrow. Okay, step number one, you get the information from the seller and then the buyer, you create an email, and then you reach out to the title company. Step number two, you add the purchase contract. So you have this breakdown of all the stuff that we know how to do because it's in our heads. It's just at the moment of teaching and articulating it, it becomes a challenge because we don't have it in a specific order, right? Something that somebody can follow as a step-by-step direction. And at first, it's somewhat of a challenging, task or activity to do. But after you do it, over and over again, you get better. You even get better at thinking in linear form. So when you explain stuff, it's just easier because you get into that process of thinking that way, right? Whenever I'm coaching or building a new SOP or video or training, I use loom.com. Super simple platform. It's a screen share thing. But turn that on and start talking through the, whatever actions you're taking, right? You can create an instructional video really, really quick. Loom has a feature in there. They just added AI in transcription, but they have a feature in there which is like turned into my favorite one because it'll take whatever you recorded on your video and it'll transcribe it, but it'll put it on bullet point format. So it's not the word by word. It's just break down some bullet point and collect the emphasis of the major points. And it's pretty dialed in. So I use that as a breakdown, right, for the SOPs. So between a couple of different tools and whatnot, you can get to a point where you need a new process in place. Like all you do is you can roll it up in 10-15 minutes, and you don't have to worry about that thing ever again. Why? Because it's in a video somewhere in your system, right? And people can, and your team can go back and refer to it.
Dude, that's how we train most of our VAs on acquisitions. And like Max Jimenez, he's our both of us, he's our friend, right? And
I just had lunch with Max. Shout out to Max yesterday, actually.
Shout out to Max too. That's our friend. And what he did is he trained some of my VAs like a couple of years ago on acquisitions and how to qualify sellers and all of that, right? We recorded all of that. And every new VA that we get on lead generation has to go through Max trainings.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for Max because he that was a collaboration that him and I were doing at the time. And my guys love him. They're like, I was in Venezuela about a month ago and I was talking to one of my new guys. His name is Abel. And we started talking about people in the space, like in the acquisitions, and his name came up and his eyes lit up and he's like, oh my God, he's the best. And I love him. And he's helped me so much with like rebuttals and things like that. So I pulled up my phone and I called him, called Max on FaceTime. And I said, hey man, you got some fans inside my company, brother. Say hi. And so they started talking. But yeah, what you're talking about as far as like recording on Loom and doing instructions is so simple, and we take it for granted.
Yeah,
we're all day working on the computer on something like, maybe it's a process, maybe it's fixing a problem or solving a challenge, or even doing QuickBooks and things like that. Why not record it? And then when you have to train somebody, you just gotta put it. Like we have a server. It's a NAS server. I forgot the name of it, but we put everything on that server. And then when the new hires come in, their job is to go through all those videos.
Right.
Now we used to use Kajabi for that because Kajabi allowed us to see how much of the video they watched.
Yeah.
But then we were paying like almost $500 a month for that, and I'm like, just to train people? No, like they can go watch the videos on my server, and what we need to do is we need to test them,
right,
and do like a role play and make sure that they went through the whole system, right?
And that's the way to do it, really, because I mean, somebody can just let the video run. I mean, heck, I'm guilty of doing that whenever I do like continuing education credits because the info.
Right.
So you just, and so yeah, I use Go High Level because of I have all my coaching stuff in there. So I use it as well for my, my internal trainings and ops. So it just, it plays out well. But yeah, I mean, something as simple as a Google Drive, dude, with different folders, right? Like if you have a dispo company or a wholesaling company, you can have a folder for lead generation. You can have a folder for acquisitions. You can have a folder for dispositions. Another folder for admin KPIs and tracking, right? And whenever you're recording any relevant training, right, you just drop it into that folder, and whoever comes in, for example, your acquisitions person is going to come in, a new one you just hired, you give them access to that acquisitions folder, right? It's got the contract, it's got everything, so it doesn't have to be so complicated. And I feel like that's the
Or
big,
expensive.
yeah, or expensive. And I feel like sometimes that's the big, scary, daunting part, right? Like, no, it's got to be produced, it's got to be perfect. It doesn't. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll walk somebody through the process of what I want them to do. Dude, and I'm rough around the edges. Just look at any of my podcasts. I mean, I'm not, super refined and whatnot. Same thing
Yeah,
when
I'm the
I'm
same way, brother.
when I when I'm training somebody, it's the same thing. Sometimes I'm figuring out stuff on the screen and kind of teaching them how to think, right? But what I'll do is, if I need that video to be better, I'll have them go out and just reproduce it again. They have to go through it. They have to record it, and now it's a clean version of whatever I taught them, right? And take that into the bank. That's it. So it's not. I mean, it's not that complicated. And as far as what to record or what systems and processes to put out there, your business is going to tell you. Your business is going to tell you that every single day. I mean, a new thing comes up. Okay, this is how we record a memorandum video for that. But instead of spending 15 minutes explaining it to an employee, hop on a Zoom call. Click record on Loom if it's by yourself or whatever, and then send that link. And take that extra 2 minutes that it's going to take you to set up the screen, and trust me, man, at the end of the day, it's well worth it, dude. It used to take me 3 months to train an acquisitions rep. So by the time I was done with trainings and hours and strategies, I would have to handhold the deals for around 3 months before an acquisition rep was ready. In my head, I was training them for 2 weeks, right? But realistically, they were calling me back about so many little questions, so many little things. I was like, man, this person is really like, I'm handholding for about 3 months. Anytime I hire an acquisitions rep. Now, I couldn't hire if I was gone. If I was gone or on a vacation with family or whatever, this is where the whole CEO thinking, part kicks in, right? If I was gone, there was nobody to train them. So I started doing videos. I started recording, and the way that I close, and just putting content together internally, right, for my business first. And now, like, really, all it takes from my time is 30 minutes to train an acquisitions guy, because they go through the training modules. Right at this point, they'll Q&A with an acquisitions manager, and I end up coming in kind of like for the final conversation with them. But at that point, they've already went through a whole bunch of stuff, and I get to do what I love doing, which is being the coach of my company as well. So they'll reach out for stuff that it's not in the protocols, in the SOPs, those niched out deals that are just kind of weird, or something like that, right? Something exciting, not the regular, day-to-day stuff that we get tired of if we stay in there for too long. So
Now, have you ever operated of the VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer? And I know you used to work with Sean Terry many
yeah,
moons ago, right? And I remember I bought a course from Sean. This is like back in 2000, I don't know, 16, maybe 15, something like that, called the 100K Wholesaler.
$100,000 wholesaler.
Yeah, and
flip2freedom.com.
Flip to Freedom, bro. Shout out to Sean, man.
Shout out Sean. OG right there.
I don't know if he's doing the podcast anymore. I used to get excited listening to him on the podcast, and he's got so much energy,
Yeah.
like how to generate a $10,000 check in 2 weeks, and I'm like, man, I was hooked, right? So
yeah, I closed my first deals, dude. That's before I even met him, but I closed my first deals listening to, I think, the first 5 episodes of the Flip to Freedom podcast.
Yeah,
between him and Todd Tobac's podcast back in the day. I mean, that's kind of what got me sold, and I just never looked back.
And then you ended up working with him, right? You
Yeah.
used to do acquisitions with Sean for a
Yeah,
while.
I got into so I had another business after I left the fire department. I launched my business. It was a non-emergency transportation business, and I ran that for years. And I sold that business because I wanted to get into real estate full time. So when I sold it, I was like, I'm gonna go. If I'm gonna work for anybody, it's gonna be like somebody at the tip of the tip of the sword. And
The goat,
yeah,
man, the
I
goat, Sean
I
Terry.
yeah, I applied. He sent out just regular applications. I applied, met with the guy, got hired on the spot, and I told him, dude, this is a true story. I told him in our meeting, I told him, listen, my plan is to maybe stick around for a year. I'll give you my best for a year. I can guarantee you a year. I stayed there 3 years, dude. I like because I wanted to. It was just like such a cool environment, cool culture. I got exposed to the events and everything and the coaching. And I mean, it was just a big growth experience. But just playing in that space and seeing how it was operated is like we were dealing with some deals that were like, I mean, they had bugs all over the place, right? It was like, and Sean was in California in his beach house. Like, okay, I see how it's supposed to be ran. You know what I mean? So that taught me a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, great experience there.
Well, I bought the 100K wholesaler, and inside the 100K wholesaler, he teaches people how to you work on the vision traction organizer, and he talks about the book traction and all that.
Yeah,
And I started using that tool, and until today I still use it. Now I have perfected it because after I don't know 8 or 9 years later of using that tool ongoing all the time. Every quarter I review it. I review once a year. I've built multiple tools for multiple businesses that we have. I coach people now on how to build that tool, but it was thanks to him, man. Like that's who put it in front of me. And I remember, Rafael, a couple of years ago, it must have been 2022 early, maybe. Um, we were doing all this virtual wholesaling, and I had an office here in Houston. I don't remember if you came to my office in Houston or not, but I had an office here in Houston, and um, I had like 15 people on these positions. Like we were very heavy on dispo because we did a lot of JVs, but we also did a lot of our own deals. And I remember having $1.6 million in assignments to collect. And I went to the team and I said, guys, I never had this many deals in my life. Number one, it was like almost 70 deals on the board. Um, that's a lot of money to collect. And I know you're gonna make a good chunk on commissions and your salary and all that. But here's what I want to do with you guys. If you collect this money in the next 90 days, not the 30 days, in the next 90 days, which is plenty of time, I'm gonna give you a third of that money in bonuses. And they all got excited, like, oh yeah, shit, let's go, right? Like
yeah,
the Wolf of Wall Street, brother. Like 45 days into it, I'm looking at that board, and that board is looking bad. Like deals are not moving. I'm not collecting the money. We were closing on some deals, but it was like the slam dunk deals, like the ones that sell on their own, you
yeah,
know. And I was so frustrated. You know, I was like, okay, what can I do to motivate these guys? Like, obviously, it's not money, because if it was money, they
you'd
would
be
have
all
went
over
and
it.
got.
Yeah,
They would have went and got it already. Oh, we got a visitor in the back here. If it was money, they would have got it already. Um, give me 1 second, mommy. Dile a tu abuela, mama. Sorry about that. He's like top tapping on my back, like I want to do this, I want to do this.
how you doing, Dad?
I'm like, oh my god, all right. So so anyhow, they it was not money. It wasn't. Then I started like questioning, what are we doing here? Like, and I'm going through all kinds of questions on my own. Do I really want to continue to do this? Like, and one day, this is on a Monday morning. I used to have my Monday meetings, and whoever was remote will log in on Zoom, and then everybody will have a whole morning meetings to go through our scorecards and what deals close, what needs to be done, and man, I showed up this day and I was so like, I don't know, I was beat. Like, I had lost all my drive, and the conversation went like this: I said, guys, if I need to go sell these deals on my own, I don't need you guys. For that reason, you're all fired. So, dude, I just literally fired everybody on a Monday morning. And I said,
Wow.
I'm gonna go sell these deals because that's the other thing. We started looking at the deals.
Hmm.
Okay, is this a deal? And the answer was yes. I was like, how come we're not selling them? Like, are we
Yeah.
not making the amount of dials that we need to do, or like what is it, right? So, and then I started digging into it, and that was it. They weren't putting out the things that they needed to be doing in order to make it happen. Period.
Yeah.
So once I cleaned the plate, I only left two people in my office at the time. It was Caesar and Shane, and I went back to my office and I closed the door. And I was questioning whether I was going to continue doing the same thing. Like, am I going to continue to wholesale? Do I really want to do this? And the answer was like, not the same way you've been doing it. Like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, maybe I'm burned out already and this is not for me anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So I pulled out my vision traction organizer, and this is why I bring the tool up. And usually when you pull the vision traction organizer, you're finding the gaps. Like, what are my gaps? Like, where are my holes? But that day I did something different. I said, I'm not going to look at my gaps. I know what those are. I'm going to focus on what's working. And I started going through all my business plan, basically. That's all it is. It's a business plan.
Right.
And
It's
it's a reverse engineer business plan, right?
yeah.
And I found out that my two guys that were overseas at that time, Carla and Carlos, was the only thing working in my whole plan. Like, everything they touch is worked, but everybody else was all messed up. Like, it wasn't like happening like A, B, C, D, like step by step. So I said, how come I haven't put more time into these people and giving them more responsibilities to do more and
Yeah.
maybe become part of my team more than some of the guys that I have here in the office, even making a lot more money than they have, because I'm seeing them as VAs, right? And for a very long time, we had a like we think of the term VA, and right away we think is cheaper or cheap or very inexpensive,
Yeah.
right? Because we're saving money by doing that. So I got on a call with both of them, and I said, "Hey guys, number one, I want to thank you for the time that you've been with me, because they had already been with me for like 4 years. Um, I like to know if you guys can do more. Meaning, can you take more responsibilities? Can you hire people? Can you train them? Can you make sure they do what they're supposed to be doing? They follow instructions. If we need to have somebody doing 200 dials a day, can you make that happen?" And they're like, "Yeah, we've been waiting for this moment, but you always kind of like left us the easy things to do. We want to do
Yeah.
more." And I was like, all right. So the first thing we did was we hired 5 people. Actually, no, we already had them. We had 5 of our lead generators. They were texting at the time, doing lead generation. So that's how we were getting all of our contracts, through texting. I said, how is their English? Oh, their English is very good. Okay. I want to train them on acquisitions. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them to do dispositions, because we have a lot of deals on the board. We got to make all this money that we haven't collected. And that's how we started literally doing virtual wholesaling from South America. Was I got rid of my American guys. I got my people from Venezuela. They started doing dispos, and man, deals started closing. And then I was like, oh, it worked.
I'm onto something here.
I'm on to something here. And then I go to acquisitions, and then we start doing the acquisitions, and then it's working. And now I'm like, okay, how can I get more of this? Right. And before I knew Rafael, even it was because of the tool, because I was able to look at the tool and say, okay, what is working on inside of my plan? Something is working. Maybe 98% is garbage right now. Okay. But that 2%, what is it? And I found it. It was the two guys. And actually a guy and a girl. And then, all right, how can I help them get more? Right. So I
Yeah.
started talking to them and I gained clarity, like you talked about earlier on the podcast. I was like, okay, they're ready for more. I just didn't give them the chance. And then, okay, how can I make them more money now? Because if they're gonna help me make more money, it's just a matter of, hey,
Yeah, they gotta get compensated. Yeah.
they're gonna get compensated for it, right? And before I knew it, man, I had a big office in Houston. I only went to work over there. Now I'm working out of my living room pretty much in my house. I don't need an office anymore here in Houston. In Venezuela, I do have an office. It's big. But we had that's where the majority of our people are. We got now 40, 50 people over there. Uh, and our business has literally transitioned multiple times. Now we focus more on the VA services than even my own real estate. Um, but it's more fulfilling for me to serve
Yeah.
other people than to try to close. I guess that the days of me closing a bunch of deals and feeding my ego, they're over. Like I'm like, okay, how many more deals can I close? I don't. It doesn't drive me anymore. Um,
Well, I think it connects back to the same thing that I was, what I was talking about earlier, right? We operate under this premise of I gotta hit this goal, and then all we do is move the goalpost. But I feel like inevitably, after a while, you're gonna grow to acknowledge different needs. Contribution is gonna be a big one. I feel like now you're impacting a lot of people right through your business, and that whole sense of fulfillment is it's different.
it's different.
It's not the coin, it's the impact, right? um but yeah, man, I couldn't agree more with everything that you're talking about right now. Like, for example, the VTO is again, I think it's one of the best tools and simplest tools to come in and roll out real quick for your business. And if you haven't the audience hasn't read the book Traction by Gino Wickman,
Yeah.
I mean, that's where they can find it. I actually had Gino on my podcast a while back.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, stellar guy. Um,
How do you meet him?
his team actually reached out. Yeah, and yeah, we ended up on the podcast and connecting and afterwards and everything. So, but yeah, I mean, I learned so much. It was one of the first business books that really kind of, not kind of, but really like helped me think in the entrepreneur way, as opposed to like, let's throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks.
But
You know what
are
I
you
mean?
using today the Vision Traction Organizer?
I built my own version of
Okay.
the process. So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the tools that allow me to do that, because I do have some elements of it. And I mean, now I have it's a 7-step process that I do for all my businesses, and I do that in the consulting and coaching as well. But yeah, it has elements of the VTO in there. It does. So yeah, to answer your answer is yes. Like the context and the teachings from that, like what I did was just scale those up. I mean, it's really what I did.
Now, did you learn that? When was the first time you were exposed to the VTO? Was it through Sean or through something else that you did?
No, it was through no, it was through my first business. So I knew about scorecards and started learning about KPIs back in 2007, 2006.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. So I mean, I went back to, so after I left the fire department, a couple of years of just pounding the streets and figuring out what to do and launching that first business, I decided to go back to school. And I went I graduated through the Ken Blanchard program of business, right? So I got my bachelor's on that. It's servant leadership, but they teach you a lot. They give you, let's say they give you a 30,000 foot view of a lot of the things, right, that matter in business, that are tangible. So it's not a philosophical, as philosophical as an MBA, but they give you a lot of the nuts and bolts and the actionables that you need to understand in your business. So I did that, and playing, having my first business, I started playing around with that kind of stuff. Fast forward a couple of years, I started working at Sean Terry's company. We start, so he rolls out the scorecard, and I seen a scorecard. I never built, I didn't have one for my previous business, right? It was like, and I started playing around with that scorecard, and at this point, I was still going through school and just kind of learning. I mean, I feel like it's one of the I don't know if there's anything I feel like gives me an edge is I'm always hungry to learn, man. I'm never the
Yeah,
smartest
you never
one in
know
the
it all.
room. I never know it all. Like the dumber I feel in the room, the better it is for me. Like I get excited about that kind of stuff. I'm like a kid in Disneyland. So I mean, doing the same thing back then, right? And I got exposed to the KPIs and understanding some of those flows, right? And I feel like it's at different stages where different things have clicked. So if you were to talk to me about vision and purpose, right? Back then, it's like I don't give two shits about vision and purpose. I just want to make some money right now
Yeah,
because
I need 10 grand. Like
I
I
just
want to
need
buy a new house or a new
$10,000.
car, right?
Yeah, I need gas money. And again, it's depending on where we're at in the journey. And I think it's a beautiful thing to go back and acknowledge, right? If you've been through the entire thing, and understand, right, where we're coming from. So another thing, right, as we're going through it, I used to want to compare where I was, at that point in my journey in the learning curve and actionables and resources and everything, to somebody who had been in it for 10, 15 years. Like, no, I suck. These people are crushing it. Yeah, but they have the connections. They already sat at the tables that I need to sit at. You know what I mean? They're just further ahead in the journey. It doesn't mean that they're better or smarter or anything. It's just, it's a different, time frame. That's all. Right. So I started understanding a lot of that stuff. And I feel like the book kind of made sense as a whole over a period of maybe 10 years. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I started understanding some gaps. I mean, I had the context of it. I was aware. I suspected that that's how things went. Yeah, I'm sure, vision and
No, when I read the
and
book, I
purpose is
didn't.
gonna,
Brother, I was bored. Like that was a boring subject for me. I was like,
yeah,
what is this? Like, it's obviously my internal growth wasn't where
yeah,
the book was, and I was like completely lost. I'm
yeah.
like systems and processes and reversing
What?
engineering. And I'm like, what are they talking about? All I want to do is make 100 grand a month or something like that.
Yeah,
That's why I bought the 100K wholesaler
yeah.
program.
Yeah, yeah, give me that. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting, but I think as entrepreneurs, we have to understand that too, right? We have to be aware of the learning curve and where we're at a mindset level, not just emotional level, but a mindset level, right? Some things are gonna click. It's like reading the same book 5 years later. I mean, I remember, the first time I read Think and Grow Rich. The only chapters that resonated with me were the chapters where actually the first chapter where he's just going through that, he's like that tenacity of I want to connect with that person. I'm gonna do whatever it takes. Like the first time I read the book, that's what landed. Everything else was like a mastermind group. Like, what? Synthetic intelligence or imagination? What? Like nothing else connected. That one chapter made sense to me, right? But that's where I was at on a mental plane. I was in that hustler mentality too. Like nothing was going to stop me from moving forward in my business, and that's the thing that was talking to me. So that's what's so crazy about going out there and learning. I mean, I'm an avid reader. You can see the library behind me.
Yeah.
And every single day, like my mind is blown by something new, right? And it's also very interesting how now I go back to books
Have
that
you read this?
Buy Back Your Time. Yeah, Dan
It's
Martell.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
good.
I have it back there. Actually, he sent it. That was pretty cool. And but yeah, so you go, like it's gonna talk to you, or things are going to talk to you at different stages, right? So if you go through something that people are saying is really good, don't dismiss it and just okay, it's maybe not now, but it's going to make sense at some point. I understand, right?
Have you read the book The Alchemist?
Dude, that was the first book that that got me into reading. I kid you not.
Okay, so now
Coelho.
let's think you're 15 years old and you read this book.
Yeah.
Will it make sense?
No,
No.
not at 15.
No, because you haven't lived through life yet.
Maybe the part where I wanted to get away, like that part. That's it.
That's like, okay, I want to get away. Boom, done. Like it's talking to me, right?
Yeah.
But then you read the story and how this kid gets beat up by everything, all their circumstances and life. And maybe you say, maybe I don't want to get away, because if I'm gonna go through all of that,
Yeah.
why would I want to go on a journey on my own, right?
Yeah.
And somebody was asking me that. I think it was last week. I mentioned the book and I said, "Oh, The Alchemist," and oh, it was one of my team members in Venezuela. That she said, "I read that book, but I didn't get it." And I asked her, "How old are you?" And she's like, "I'm 18."
Oh,
I
yeah.
said, "That's why you give it another 10 years, read it again." And she's like,
And
"Oh, I see what you mean, right?"
the
So
and the message is so deep, man. But yeah, you see what I'm saying, right? Like as far as things landing at their given time, and it's just what's gonna happen. We're developing our mindset. We're developing a different side of us that's growing, on the responsibility side, on the leadership side, on the common sense and problem solving side. Like there's so many things that I look at now. They're like, oh, it's just. I mean, that's a sneeze. When if I were to look at the same thing 10 years ago, like, dude, I'd be losing my shit. You know what I mean?
right.
It's just it's we're evolving and we get better as the businesses grow, and I feel like it's the best path to personal growth as well.
What
Uh,
does your real
yeah,
estate business look like today, Rafael? I know that, like me, you have evolved and transitioned into multiple things. And like, if
yeah,
you ask me what I do today, I'm like, look, man, I got a house. I'm a landlord.
yeah,
I'm finishing like a flip here and there, but I'm not as actively as I was doing a lot of deals at some point.
yeah.
And I wonder about you, like what does your real estate business look like today?
So I consolidated. I had multiple businesses, and I consolidated a few of them into three. Right. So I have Pulse Capital, which is my real estate wholesaling fix and flip business.
Right,
I have CEO Pulse. That's my organizational psychology practice, and that's where I consult and I coach, right? And then I have a real estate brokerage, which is Pulse Realty and Associates. So those three businesses kind of talk to each other, they feed each other, and they kind of play well in the same sandbox.
right,
My wholesaling business is I mean I broke it down into six lanes, right? So I have sourcing, which is lead generation and marketing. I have lead gen, which is pre-qualifying. So we source, pre-qualify, acquisitions, dispositions, and then I have measuring, which is an admin role, and then improving, which is the final hat that's worn on that role. And
right,
the way that I break down the lanes of responsibilities and the roles on the sourcing stage, I have cold callers, I have door knockers. My lead manager, which is the person above that, manages all the accountability and KPIs for those,
got
right? So
it.
I have one lead manager. We're doing a lot of PPC as well, and most of the leads right now are coming in from well, actually three vehicles, which is door knocking, one of them for pre foreclosures. We do great on that one. We actually built software that we're putting out there as well,
Okay.
and then the cold calling team and PPC, right? So we take those three main sources. We have direct mail campaigns and a couple other ones, but all the leads that come in, they get sent to my lead manager. So we stop them at the lead manager level. I have one lead manager that all she's doing, all day long is pre-qualifying leads. All right, this one is viable. This one is viable. This one is viable. This one is junk. This one is junk. This one is junk. And the ones that she pre-qualifies and turns into prospects get pushed over to acquisitions. I have two acquisition reps. It's not a big company. We're still doing around, on average, about 15 deals a month, right?
That's a
So
lot.
by design, I mean, I keep it there. I've done the 20 deals plus 30 deals a month
Look,
gig and everything.
in,
It's too
in
much.
today's environment, anything above 5 deals to me is big already.
And it's too much brain damage, right? So I have the acquisition section like that, or the lanes. Acquisitions, of course, hands it over to Dispo. I have a Dispo manager and a Dispo rep. So I have two people in Dispo selling the deals. And what they do have that allows them to spend a lot of time on outbound calls and sales, that's all they're doing, sales, is I have a transaction coordinator and I have three people in the marketing team for the deals. So they're not marketing the deals, they're not putting, the emails together, they're not doing the posts, they're not doing any of that stuff. That's delegated to a couple other people. So the biggest department really is Dispo. And between that as support and then the lead generation side as pre-qualifying, I mean, we get to play with decent leads, right? They're not all, pre-qualified 100%. There's still negotiation that has to take place. We have to
Right.
be tenacious on the follow-up and all that stuff. But I have
Mm.
SOPs in place. Like, for example, there's a sequence right that we follow on acquisitions. If we start getting ghosted, we get ghosted 3 times, and then they kick it back up to a lead manager, right, for follow-up. I don't want my acquisitions people
No, burning his time
yeah,
into
yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. Like, they're either interested or they're not, right? If they're ghosting us, we're gonna find another way of getting to them if they want to be found, right? So we do that, and so there's checks and balances like throughout the entire thing. Now, on top of Dispo, I have that director of operations role, which is the KPI, the measuring and accountability. It's different roles. It doesn't mean that I have different people for every single one of them. For example, right now, my director of operations is also my Dispo manager, right? So everybody reports to him. He catches everything before it gets to me. And what I'm doing on my end as the ownership or CEO is I'm handling the vision, the direction of the company, and I'm handling the high level stuff. For example, if there's a funky deal that's, it's creative, or, we don't know how to structure this because we haven't seen it in the past. It's a commercial deal, whatever, right? That's where I come in. And I love to play in that space, right? But that's what it looks like. So in terms of manpower, one lead manager, we have a team of 5 in-house cold callers. The PPC campaigns that are running, they generate, a good amount of leads. I think we're looking at around 25 leads, 25, 30 leads a week, new ones, but they stack up real quick when they're doing follow-ups. Right.
Right.
So keep it metered there with the overhead and everything. And then on acquisitions, again, I have 2 full-time. I have 1 part-time that kind of hops in, and every time we get, backlog or whatever, they'll come in and help out. And then dispositions is going to be 2 dispo role, or 2 people in dispo, my dispo manager and a dispo rep, my transaction coordinator, huge, game changer when we plugged in at TC. In terms of the time that the dispo reps had available to market and be proactive, make those calls, outbound calls, and actually go out there and find buyers, as opposed to, I'm going to send a blast and then just sit here, see if anything happens. Shit's not moving that way anymore. It used to.
No.
Anymore.
We are actively calling, right? So we're
Yeah.
calling buyers just like we are sellers. It's no different.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, there's really good tools that make it a lot easier than 5-10 years ago when we were going, all crazy on it. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good process. I think a lot of the central support really comes from VAs. For example, my lead manager, she started as a cold caller. She's been with me since 2017. She's a lead manager now, and she fulfills the role of EA also. So she's doing lead management, but she's also on that EA support where, the platforms, the software, the payments. So she has certain access to some of the, the financials and the cards of the company, like all the little stuff that I'm not going to pay attention to because my mind's all over the place. Like, she catches that kind of stuff, right? So it checks and balances, and it's once you have clarity over what your company looks like, you can start to plug and allocate like roles and responsibilities. I mean, it's just a lot easier that way.
Yeah,
So,
amazing. And what are the majority of your deals today? Are they wholesale deals? Are they innovations? Are you buying them and reselling them? What does that look like?
Wholesale. We primarily wholesale.
You're still wholesale. You're not
Yeah.
innovating?
No, we're not novating. I mean, I'll do attorney in facts.
Yeah.
So they're not full novations. But yeah, we don't, I mean, honestly, dude, I mean, we just, like, my one thing that I drill into the acquisitions team is, I mean, we have to find the people who like, it's a deal, right? Deals are deals. And granted, like, there's attrition too, and that would, like, some of the deals fall off and whatnot. It happens. We've had one thing that we've had recently too. It's happened maybe twice over the last 3 months. It's fraudulent sellers.
Yeah, we had those, man.
We'll go through the entire process, get to the close of escrow, and it's like, oh, we need a notary. I can't sign with a notary. I was like, oh, we find out it's not the right seller. On one of them, actually, we actually had the owner of the property call us, super pissed off. Why are you selling my properties? This fraud. Is like, no, no, hold on. You're like, Mike, and then the guy's name was Mike. So they did, research right and everything. They're getting crafty, but he wasn't selling their property. We were talking to somebody else the entire time. So, anyways, like there's nuisances, right? That
Yeah,
happen.
we had one that where we had to release the phone because we were using Go High Level for all the conversations with the seller,
Yeah,
and they were all recorded. So this is in New Jersey. Actually, it was a piece of land.
yeah,
We had already, assigned. We were just waiting for closing, and the
yeah,
title company hit us up and said, "Hey, Detective so and so is going to give you a call. You guys need to talk to him. Is regarding this lot in whatever street." And
yeah.
I'm like, "What? Like, what's going on here?" So we talked to the detective, and the detective is like, "Hey, man, I think that your seller is a fraudulent person. They It looks like this is a forged ID."
In Jersey.
And yes,
Yeah, one of them happened in Jersey. For one of the ones I'm talking about, it happened in Jersey.
so I think it's very common over there for
Yeah,
these types of deals to happen.
yeah,
And they gave me I would call it was like a subpoena or something like that, where I
yeah.
had to release all my phone records to them.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what happened after that because we closed it, like we canceled the agreement,
Hey,
and
drop the file. Yeah,
yeah, we dropped the file, and we talked to the title company. We said send the money back to the buyer. We don't want to be involved in this.
right.
And it was actually a JV deal that another wholesaler brought to us, and we gave that wholesaler's name and information to the detective, and that's the last thing we knew about it. So,
Yeah.
but it was they were literally stealing a piece of land.
Well, I think the play there is EMD, because they get super scrappy about like EMD being deposited on the seller side. It's like, all right, I'll sell you a property. Did you deposit EMD? And I think they're waiting for like expirations on EMD and inspections for title to release the EMD. Now think about it, right? Like it's hard. I mean, once that happens, all they do is, okay, where do I send the EMD? There's no transfer of title. So I think that's the play. I don't know, I may be wrong, but I just kind of sat with it. It's like, what's the game, like what's the play here with these guys?
Yeah, I
And
don't remember exactly. On our case, we had EMD at the title company, so
yeah.
um, and we always do it that way, man. And sometimes I even sell properties to some of my friends, and they're like, "Should I send you the check?" I said, "Man, just put it on the title company."
Always. Yeah, we never take money.
Yeah,
Just
never take
always
money because you
always put
never
it on the
know
title company.
the deal fall through. You use the money in something else, and now you gotta give it back, and
Yeah.
and that's a bad month for you, and now you gotta like find the money to give it back to your client or whatever, and that's the last conversation you want to have is, oh, I don't have to earn this money anymore, right?
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
anyhow, brother,
Interesting.
this has been amazing, Rafael. Thank you so much for connecting with me today, brother,
Of course.
and talking about how you actually handle your business from a perspective of being a CEO of your company. I am so happy that you're doing so well when it comes to like all the things that you're doing, because you're doing multiple things. You have your coaching, you have your real estate company, and what else is it that you told me you were doing? That's it, right? Coaching.
The
Those are the two main things, right?
the brokerage as well.
And the
Yeah.
brokerage, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, by the way, if you're in the Phoenix, Arizona area, you have to go check out Raphael's office. It's amazing. I love your space, man. It's a pretty cool building that you have. Um,
Thank you, bro.
and I saw your post about some dinner that you wanted to do like in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be in Vegas. I don't know how far Vegas is from Phoenix.
3 hours.
I may hit you up. I'm gonna be in Vegas that week of Thanksgivings.
Okay.
And I don't mind driving over there just to go hang out and maybe for a day or so.
Well,
If you do it during those dates, I'm actually going to the Formula One race in Vegas. I think it's on the 22nd.
nice.
And I'm staying over for Thanksgiving at my sister's house. So
Okay, nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I was thinking in a couple of weeks, probably on a Friday, but I mean, whatever works for everybody. I'm trying to get a group of maybe 10, 15 people, and I don't know, just go hang out and connect. That's.
Dude,
Let
I
me know
miss
when, and I'll work around the date.
I miss going to Phoenix so much, man. I the last time I went, I believe was for maybe for like a freedom event with Carlos and Sal and those guys, right?
Yeah,
And I texted Carlos 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had a dream, man, and they were involved in the dream, which is weird because I rarely I haven't talked to Carlos and those guys for a long time. But the dream said you need to tell Carlos to get back to basics, and so I texted him and I said, brother, I don't know why I had this dream, but here's the message, right? And he texted me back like later on, um, and I said, Carlos, you need to go do another event again, another freedom, another something, because that brings a lot of people together. I do my events in Houston, which, by the way, my next event is a 10 Growth, March 14th and 15th, 2025. You're invited, Rafael. You've been to my events before, and I would love to have you back as a VIP guest. Um,
done.
but those guys, when they put those big events together, they did bring a lot of us together. So um, I hope that they throw another one and it's soon, so I can visit. I don't know how many, man. I there's so many of you guys out there. What is it in Phoenix, man? Like,
It's the water, man.
it's the water, right? Like, I mean,
No, I know exactly what it is. It's Sean Terry. I mean, it goes back to, it really does. It goes back to Sean, but like a lot of the events that he was doing here in town, like the events that he got to speak at early in 2014, 15, 16. Um, Carlos and Sal were there. Batch was there. I mean, I remember weekends where all these guys that are now doing big things in the space, somehow in one way or another we're there. And I mean, it's local. It's a local event, so we had a lot of local people go to it, right? Steve Trang and all these guys as well. So we all got exposed to I feel like, to the information, but we just happened to be at the front of the line, because of where we lived. So that was pretty interesting.
because
Yeah,
when you think about it, I only see this happen in Phoenix, where there are huge collaborations. When I'm talking about, I mean, putting events together. You doing things in your office and everybody showing up and supporting,
yeah.
right? Um, and then Steve has a podcast and he invites everybody from Phoenix to the podcast. In Houston, we have big time real estate investors. I mean, we got people here that are like they're doing all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's not the same. It's like connecting and collaborating, and part of what I do with our events is to build a bridge with the local talent, like the local people also, that so we can maybe one day be like you guys in Phoenix, So um
It's at the end of the day, it's collaboration, dude. We had this one, Brandon Simmons. Brandon, right?
of
Brandon Simmons.
course,
Yeah.
that's a great friend, man. He's back with Sean now.
Yeah, exactly. So we used to work together back in the day, and then one day, this is after I left Sean's business, he reached out. He goes, "Hey, I want to put something together. I have this idea. I want to put together the Go Giver. I want to put together a mastermind. The name is going to be the Go Giver Mastermind." And I was like, "All right, cool. What's the premise of it?" And then, dude, I mean, Hispanic, we're not really used to collaborating. Like,
Right.
it's a cultural thing, really. Unfortunately, it is what it is, but it truly is that way. And he goes, "Well, I want to get us all in the room, like everybody who's doing deals here in the valley, and just get us, in a room, and then start sharing what's working for everybody, and acquisitions and lead generation, and like I'm sitting there thinking." So let me get this straight. You want to put a bunch of guys who are in the most cutthroat business probably available, and in a room, and then just start, talking about what's working for them, and just, giving the secret keys to the kingdom of each of the operations. And he goes, "Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun." I was like, "All right, dude, I love you. I'm in. Right. I didn't even question it because it was Brandon. I was like, all right, I'll go support you. But honestly, dude, I am ashamed to admit it. I never thought it would work. I really didn't think, and that it was gonna, hit it, I guess click like it did. So we start the Go Giver, or he starts the Go Giver mastermind, and we start meeting at Dave and Buster's in a little conference room, and I mean it's just a fun time, and we go around the table and we all start sharing like, hey, what's working with with you on marketing, or who's I'm having issues with roar and RVMs. Anybody found a way around it? Oh, try this provider. So we started exchanging ideas, and it happened, dude. I mean, that went on for a good I think maybe 3 years, 3.5 years.
I went to it when it was at the Clever Investors office. The
So
old ones, not the new ones, but the old ones.
yeah. So and that was like the Go Giver Mastermind. I mean, that was towards the. I think like towards maybe the last. When was this?
I would say it was 2 years ago, maybe the last time
Yeah,
I went.
21, 22. Yeah, that's kind of when it kind of started, to dissipate because everybody started doing their own things. But in that room, dude, I mean, I met Brent Daniels, who turns out to be one of my best friends now, and we started collaborating. I mean, I started working with his team, back and forth and on CRMs and deals and all kinds of stuff. And Pace and Jamil, they connected in that group and they started collaborating. So you have like a lot of the really good solid relationships that have just kind of solidified through the years that happened. We all got kind of introduced at the Sean Terry events, and then we all, like a lot of us got solidified as relationships, like Steve and all these guys. I mean, great friends at the Go Giver Mastermind, which is another small little group, 40 people. And I mean, it was just, people making money, exchanging ideas, and Eric Sage. That's where I met Eric Sage and all these guys. So it's pretty interesting, man. Like you never know what seed you're gonna plant it's gonna grow into something, that's just wild and beautiful. So
Well,
yeah,
something we adopted from Brian Ponciano, who you know as well, right?
yeah,
Is the Go Giver dinner, which in our events in Attend Growth, the night before the event, we all go to a restaurant and it's a mom and
oh
pop,
yeah.
and we collect $100 a head. And but that
Well,
was Brian that won the that introduced me to that, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do this in my events, but I want to do it big, So because he was doing it with like 10, 20 people, and then regular dinners, like every month he'll
yeah,
go out and have a dinner with somebody. I said, well, because I'm gonna have all these people come to my real estate events, I'm just gonna make the VIPs, the sponsors, and the speakers bring $100 each and pay for their meal, and then we'll tip the staff at the end of the night. And I think Brian has come to the last two events, and I always give him the honors of distributing the money. Like, here
yeah,
you go, Brian. You're the one that got me into this. You go give the money. On the last one, we gave $10,000. That was 100 people paying $100, and you had to see the faces of the staff, man. They
yeah.
could not believe they were getting a $10,000 tip.
I was there at the last one.
There you go.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so it's one of those things that, because I've been exposed to the culture of what you guys are doing in Phoenix, as a group, because it's not one person running. Everybody's running their own tribes and their own circles, but you all get along and you all collaborate, and that's the key word, collaboration, right?
right. Yeah,
You guys are even welcome like, you even welcome people from the outside, like guys like me, that I'm like, oh my god, I found like a bunch of like-minded people that want to talk and want to. They're not flexing how big your operation is, or how rich you are, or how many deals you're doing. It's like, hey man, how can I serve you?
yeah,
Like, how can I help you? Like, what are you struggling with, right? And of course there's always competition, like that's normal. But if we were in business, like, who in business is not a competitor? Like, I
yeah.
mean, you gotta have some sort of competition, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you also. I mean, I feel like when we focus on the competition, is we're not focusing on the opportunity that's out there. Like I know there's a ton of deals that I wouldn't be able to do if I wasn't collaborating with a bunch of people here in the valley. You know what I mean? I mean, I have one vivid example, dude. I locked up a golf course at one point, so I had it under contract, and I didn't have the network. This is, I don't know, maybe 2000. I don't know. When I, one of my first years, towards the beginning of me getting into real estate, so I couldn't move it. I couldn't do anything with the golf course that I had for sale at $1.2 million. It's a golf course, right? And I couldn't do anything. Beautiful golf course too. I mean, it was, the management was off, the business was off, and all that. So there was a lot of value add to it. But something like that, dude. Now I think about it, it's like, man, that's such an easy deal. Like it's a, it's a layup. Um, and I couldn't do anything because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have the connections, the people to talk to, and all that stuff. Um, that like I'd still be in the same space if I wasn't collaborating with people. Now, another thing too is we come across different trains of thoughts, right? So the think gets bigger. We start borrowing perspective, and when we see like something as maybe impossible or hard to do, and somebody else next to us is doing it, it's like, shit, I can do that too. So you motivate yourself even when you're not aware of it. I mean, I see my friends doing great stuff. I see you doing great stuff, and it's like, all right, cool. It fires me up. I mean, we get that at family all the time.
Yeah.
And the family mastermind. So it's stuff like that, man. I think whenever we cocoon in our own little space, especially in an industry that's as competitive as ours, we're not doing us any favors. You know what I mean? We have to go out there and have conversations, be proactive.
I love it, man. I wish we could. We need to go do a second round of this, Rafa, because
Third round.
We have so much to talk about. Yeah, but actually about this one particular subject, right? That third round. You're right about that. Man, thank you so much for coming in today, brother. At such a short notice. Number one. I appreciate your friendship, and I love to see you again soon. I hope not to wait until the next family mastermind for both of us to see each other, right?
Well, hopefully it happens in 2 weeks when we're in the area. So.
Yes, so I'm gonna check my. So I fly to Vegas. I think it's on the 22nd. So that week of Thanksgiving, you let me know, and I will make my best to show up one day with my wife. And I never take my wife out to any of these things, and I like for her to meet some of you guys, because she only gets to meet you guys when I do my events. And honestly, I'm keeping it to once a year. Two is too much. It's a lot to do, a lot to put together. And I think I want to keep them to one a year. But guys, where can people reach out to you, Rafa?
I'm very active on social. I mean, it's probably the easiest way to find me. At Rafael Cortez CEO on Instagram, Facebook. You can find me there. My YouTube channel, I have a lot of content on there too. My podcast is also there, so the CEO Plus podcast. But yeah, shoot me a DM, and it's me responding on the messages. So
yes, YouTube, Rafael Cortez, the CEO, the Pulse CEO, right?
Yeah, no. So it's just Rafael Cortez CEO.
Rafael Cortez CEO. Yeah, I'm looking, and I know I am subscribed to yours. But if you are on YouTube, guys, go put Rafael Cortez CEO. You'll find him. He's gonna be there. Also on social media, Instagram and IG. Are you on TikTok?
Sort of. I don't really spend a lot of time in there.
I use it, but I'm not really putting myself out there. Maybe because I don't understand it. Okay.
I don't know. I feel like we start leaning towards certain. I like Instagram. I just I don't know. I like the layout. I like the algorithm behind it. I don't know. That's where I spend. Like if I'm in social, like that's really where I kind of lean on. So
I'm looking at your channel right now, trying to understand it better. But anyhow, guys, reach out to Rafael Cortez. Tell him I sent you. You're in great hands with Rafael when it comes to coaching in real estate, coaching in mindset, coaching on how to be a CEO. You heard it from the man himself. With that being said, you all have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.